and welcome to Escaping the Chains podcast. I am your host, John Humphreys. We are brought to you today by Delivered Media. RJ is doing the editing, and he is the man behind the curtain. He's actually behind the curtain today, so he is our Oz. He is the magic man. If you haven't had a chance yet, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're getting close to our end of the year numbers, so that would be nice to hit that. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Escaping the Chains podcast. So today we have our guest with us, Emma. We're excited to have a discussion with her about. Well, we're going to see where it goes. A little bit about what are you? What do they call you? A serial. What is it called?
Like a repeat offender?
Well, with rehab though.
Oh,
with
yeah.
treatment.
Just insane.
So anyway, we'll see where the conversation goes. This will be a good one for, I think, if you have people that you're trying to help and it gets frustrating, because we know it does, this will be good for that. And then also probably try to get into what being in treatment looks like and willingness, how important it is for people to be willing to change and want to change, opposed to just doing it to make people happy, because there is a difference. So Emma, how are you doing today?
I'm good.
It's nice to have you on.
Thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so as they probably already gathered, I am in recovery now. It took a long time for me to get in recovery. I went to treatment like at least 10 times.
10.
Yeah. And like not just like going back to the same place, like a couple times in Florida, Ohio, Kentucky, all over Indiana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you where do we want to start? So when you that's a lot of times in treatment.
Yeah.
But why do you think the treatment wasn't, why was it not working, or was it working for a little while? Like how was that going?
So it never worked because I never went into treatment until like the last time with the mindset of, I'm going to go to treatment because I'm tired of living like this and I want to be better. I have a daughter.
Mm-hmm. So
most of the time it was someone else in my life that was like, hey, your kid needs you, like you're abandoning your kid, you should probably get some help. And I'd be like, okay, like I'll go. Or I'd be dope sick and out of whatever I needed and be like, okay, I'll go like get a shower and sleep somewhere for a couple days.
Yeah.
So it was never just like going for me. It was always for someone else.
So just to make other people happy, or
yeah.
So what's that process like? People sit down with you and you're like, hey, you need to go to treatment. And you're like, yeah, I'll go. Sometimes you say yes, sometimes you say no.
Yeah, so most of the time when it was like regarding my daughter, she was with my parents, and like one of them would like text me a picture of her and be like, hey, like look at her, you know what I mean? She misses you. And so then I would like, there's this one place in Indy that I knew I could just like go and show up to. So I went there a couple times, and I also knew that I could go there, call my family from there and be like, hey, I checked in, I'm here, and then like leave the next day.
So we have a lot of people that'll ask, like, okay, if you have kids or a kid, why isn't that motivation enough? So in those times where, like, you may do it for your daughter or whatever. Can you explain like the mindset? Because it's a question we get quite a bit. Like, why can't you just change for your kids? Or, you have people depending on you. Why can't you change? And we know it's not that simple, or everybody would do it. But can you kind of explain like what goes through your mind? And
yeah, so I always, if a family reaches out to me and they're like, they have an adult child who needs help, and they're like, they have a kid, and I always tell them like, hey, do it for your kid. I always will tell a family like, don't bring the kids into it, because as the addict who has the child, we already have enough guilt. Like, we know we have a kid. I didn't forget that I had a daughter just because I was high. You know what I mean? Like, I knew, and I felt guilt and shame over that without other people making me feel worse. And then when people would bring my daughter up to me, it would just make me feel like even crappier. And as an addict, it's not usually what I've seen, and for myself, it was not motivation. It just made me want to do whatever I was doing more so that I didn't have to feel all of that guilt and all of that
Mm,
shame.
that's good. So when you say when families reach out, you work at a treatment facility now. Yeah.
Yeah, so now I work at Allendale Treatment.
And
And I
that's
went there as a client
so
as well.
yeah, we'll get into that in a second. Is that that's Allendale? Where's the campus at, or where's the facility?
In Auburn, Indiana.
Auburn, Indiana. So yeah, so it can have an interesting effect because it can make you end up getting higher because of the guilt and shame. And I think you're aware of that stuff. Like, for me, I had my kids with me when I was using until I left, but um, I do think it's not that you're not aware of it. Like it's kind of with you all the time. When we
Oh,
talk to
absolutely.
students, sometimes they'll say, "Why doesn't my mom or dad love me enough to?" Why don't they love me enough to stop doing drugs? And then you have to go into this thing of like, when they're in that lifestyle, because we had a kid ask us that one time,
Mhm.
start bawling. But it's like, I love my daughters so much,
Mhm.
but I loved them just as much when I was using. It didn't, what I mean, the love for
Yeah.
them didn't change.
Mhm.
Now my health and mental health and a lot of things, my ability to be present changed, but I think that um, that's a hard conversation that we have to have with you sometimes, and it's common now. It's like now every so many people have people in jail or that have overdosed and died or they're still on the streets. Parents, it's just it's sad, but then like trying to communicate to them that you're still loved. It's just it's just messy, isn't it?
My daughter's dad, he's homeless right now and still using, and she's asked questions here and there, but she'll never hear me say anything bad because I've been homeless and using and abandoning my kid. Like,
Hmm.
I've been in that exact same situation, so I know that it's not because he doesn't love her. He just doesn't know a way out of the situation he's in right now.
You get stuck. And
Mhm.
then you get comfortable in like the misery of it,
That part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what you do. You
Mhm.
wake up, you figure out, what I mean?
Yeah, because to, like, normal people, they're like, "Oh, I would never be homeless." Like, this that would be my bottom, you know what I mean? Like, the second I became homeless, I would want change, but, like, you become homeless, and then you're homeless for a while, and then it's just right, like, you just adapt to it. I think addicts are really good at adapting to situations,
Mhm.
and, yeah, you just get comfortable and get stuck in it.
Yeah. Weird to find that as comfort. The things we find when we're using as comfort
Yeah.
are they do look wild to
Mhm.
somebody that's not you. It's like, how can you
Or
like
I'll tell a
sleeping?
story to someone and I'll be, like, telling the story, like, so nonchalant, like, "Oh, yeah, this one time when I XYZ," and they're over there like, "When you did what?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot that's not a normal thing that normal people do."
Sometimes we have to filter, don't we, when we're talking to people? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So how old's your daughter?
She's 6.
So you have a 6-year-old daughter. So let's talk about how you like how did you end up having to go to treatment? Like what happened in your life or what decisions did you make that kind of landed you in treatment facilities in 5 different states or whatever it was?
So, when I went to Florida the first time, I landed there because I was on a very high dose of methadone, and it
Were you
was
going to the clinic or
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and I was still using the whole time I was on methadone, so it was, like, completely pointless, but I when I was, like, Googling trying to find somewhere to go or, like, calling places, they were like, "We don't mess with that, like, dose that you're on." So I ended up flying all the way to Florida to get off methadone, and then I came back, and then the random other times I went, it was never one time I tried so I'm from Indy, and one of the times that I landed in treatment was because I was blacked out, have no memory of how I called this place or getting there or how the whole thing happened. But well, my mom took me. That's how I got there. And she took me to a place in Indy that's for like PHP, so the level after like you detox.
Mhm.
And I get there and they're like, "Hey, like check it out. This chick's obviously not sober right now. Like you
Right.
have to be sober to like start at this program." And so they called their like sister facility or facility they work with, which is in Kentucky. and drove me there. And I woke up the next day and I'm like, where am I? And somebody there was like, oh, we're in Kentucky. And I was like, we're where? Like, what do you mean? And he was like, yeah, like you're at a treatment center and it's in Kentucky.
Mm.
And I was like, okay,
Did you
cool.
stay?
For a little bit.
Yeah.
I did, yeah. And when I left there, I actually moved in with one of the techs that worked there. And so that started a whole nother down spiral of events. That me moving in with him led me to a treatment center back in Indiana. The like temporary sponsor, I shouldn't do this because that's what she was. She kind of got me out of that situation with him down there and brought me back to treatment in Indiana. And so it was always just like never normal situations, you know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
always something like off the wall, usually happening. And the very last time I went to treatment, it was because the person that took me was like, I'll pay for like your last fix if we go straight from like the dope man to the treatment center. So I'm like, okay, like I'll just AMA when I get there, you know what I mean?
Which means leave.
Yeah, I'll just leave when I get there, but sure, like let's do it. So
And that's the time it worked.
So, yeah, but while I was there, I left a couple times, but they came and they got me.
So that was,
This was Allendale.
yeah, so that was, who came to get you?
So Nate, Nikki, Chelsea, Molly was there before, Tommy.
So they would come find you and
Yeah.
bring you back to the facility.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And
How
you,
many times did they have to get you
I think it was 3. I think it was 3.
to get you through what, 28 days?
Yeah.
3
So
times?
So my daughter's birthday is November 6th. When I checked in there, it was November 7th because it was the day after her birthday. And so, yeah, like a 28-day program. I checked in November 7th, and I didn't leave until I think the beginning of February.
So you put in some time.
I was there for Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's.
Did you have to keep restarting every time
Yeah.
you came back? So you had
Yeah.
to start over?
Or they would tell me, like, okay, like, you just left. Like, you've not done that much damage. Like, let's do, like, 2 more weeks. And I couldn't even make it that, like, 2 weeks without leaving again.
What was making you leave?
Myself.
But
I would say I'm just not ready, you know what I mean? Like, it's not for me, it's not my time, I'm not ready. And Nate actually said to me while I was there, and it's always stuck with me, is that like nobody's ever ready. You just have to put one foot in front of the other and just do it. Like, it's
Yeah.
not for who wants it or who's ready for it, it's just for people who do it.
so after all the times you took off, what changed?
I think I knew. So the last time that I had like left and came back, the head people like came to me and they were like, we have to send you somewhere else because other clients are seeing that I just keep running off and I'm being brought back. And so when I left, I realized like I have really good people in my life. Like the people that were at Allendale at that time were really good for me, good to me, good to my family. And I'm like, Emma, you keep like telling myself, you keep burning these bridges. Like people aren't going to keep sticking their necks out for you and keep going the extra mile to try and help you when you're not helping yourself. And that scared me.
Yeah. So then so you had to go somewhere else?
Yeah.
And so did you make the decision on your way there, like I'm going to work this program and I'm going to take it serious and get through it?
Yeah, I think I was telling myself those things, but I still wasn't convinced. So like I have that internal like battle in your head, you know, where like part of me is like, we're gonna do it this time, we're gonna get it right. And the other part's like having doubt, like, oh, or like, are you sure we're done? Like, are you sure we really want to be sober? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think just being around like-minded people, I did like the 90 and 90 with meetings. I stayed in contact with people.
90 and 90 means 90 meetings
90
in
meetings,
90
90
days.
days, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just kept like going to sleep and waking up. And it just like the time just like ran together and it just stuck. You know what I mean? I don't think I specifically like did something different that time. I think I just, well, I put in the work. That was different. But I didn't there was no, like, OMG moment other than that, like, you're burning bridges
Yeah.
and people are gonna stop being there for you.
So when you got released this time, how hard was it to just be like, have your freedom back and make the right decisions instead of going back to what you've known for a while?
So, I stayed in Florida for a little bit, and
That's where this facility was at?
yeah, and I think that kind of paved the way, was it was really crucial, I think, for me in those first couple of months to not be in the city that I did all of my, like, damage in.
Yeah.
I think taking myself out of there was probably the best choice I ever made. And then when I did come home, I moved into my parents' house. My daughter is there, and I just kept myself busy. Did the meetings, I got a job, and I didn't hang out with anyone. Not one single person that I hung out with in the past. I still haven't to this day, like, haven't even seen them anywhere. And so I think just, like, locking in with that time with my family made all the difference. Like, any free time I had was spent with them.
I think that's important, like getting around people that support you and then reconnecting, with your kids or your
Mhm.
child is really important. So, how long were you using, and how did you get started?
So I probably started using, like, just period, like, as a 6th grader, like, drinking and smoking weed, and then, like, harder stuff in high school.
Was there a reason you think that you started in 6th grade, or was it just available?
So I went through stuff as a kid, like sexual assault type stuff as a
Mm,
kid, and I truly believe that that's the reason I tried something for the first time and it made those feelings go away. But I will never say, like, all the way into my adult life that that's the reason I kept getting high. I kept getting high because I was dependent. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I don't want people to get confused and think, like, oh, well, if I went through that, I'd probably get high too. Cause that wasn't the reason I stayed high. That
yeah,
might have been the reason the very first time, but it didn't stay the reason.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, probably like 12 with that kind of stuff. But I do remember even as young as 6th grade, I had hung out with a girl and like we went to the skating rink. She stayed at my house. We got drunk. And I had to miss school the next day because I was so like hungover and
Yeah,
sick as a 6th grader. And that's just like insane to me.
yeah, that's
Now, like
wild.
thinking about my child, I'm like, if she has a hangover in 6th grade, like that's crazy.
Yeah, that's really young.
Yeah.
I don't even know how old that is. What
I
is it?
like probably like 12.
11, 12 years old. That's wild. So so you get out of treatment and you move back, and so after all these times of treatment, something happened, you know what I mean? You finally kinda got it one day at a time, it sounds like. As you look back, what, where is God, like, in your story? Because like, a lot of times you don't know it in the moment,
Mhm.
but you look back and you're like, "Man, God was really with me there." Do you have moments like that where you look back and you're like,
I have a lot of moments that looking back when I was getting high, I'm like, that situation should have killed me 10 times over. You know what I mean? Like something bigger than myself, which for me is God, was looking out for me because
yeah,
there's absolutely no way I should be sitting here right now having this conversation with you. There's just no way.
yeah,
And for me, I grew up in the church, like going to church with my grandparents, small little Baptist church, didn't love it. Just some of the things that were said to me when I was there kind of turned me off of that.
mhm,
And then like but I would still like pray. And to me, I thought I was like really praying, but it was like, God, please let me get through these withdrawals. Or
yeah,
like, God, please let me magically find $20 on the sidewalk so I have money to get high. You know what I mean? It
right,
was like not realistic prayers. And someone had explained it to me of like, you don't pray to God and be like, Lord, please let me wake up and this shiny red Lamborghini's in my driveway. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like you have to pray like for work ethic and motivation to go to work and the things that would lead you to being able to get that thing for yourself.
yeah,
And so I think when that was explained to me that way, it really resonated with me. And like now, even recently, So a couple weeks ago, my friend was baptized. And I think if you go to church every Sunday, that's amazing. I don't. I wish that I did, but I just don't. And so if I did go to church every Sunday, there would be a guarantee that I would hear something and it would resonate with me because
Yeah.
I'm there every Sunday. Well, I went to, my friend got baptized. She invited me to come see it. It was this random church on a random Sunday. I've never been to it before. And the service, they ended up talking about, it was this guy who was in recovery. He struggled with like methamphetamines and alcohol. And then he found the church. And so it was just really cool because I'm like, what are the odds that I'm at this random church on a Sunday and this is what they're talking about? Like it felt like I was supposed to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so those kind of moments are so special to me now. And I call them God moments. And I have like a lot of those now.
Yeah. What stood out to you about the service? What are some things that stood out about the service?
So they told this story, and I'm going to butcher it completely, but you know it, about the 99.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good shepherd leaves the 99 for the one lost
Yes.
sheep. Yeah.
Yeah. And the pastor was like, think about how many times like you were the one. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you were the lost one. He abandoned everything and he came and he saved you.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is me. Like that clicked with me. And now I really like that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
good.
glad that I was there on that Sunday.
Yeah. Did you cry watching your friend get baptized?
I did. There was like 40 baptisms that day. It was a
That's
big
wild,
church, and
yeah.
it was just like sobbing the whole time.
Baptisms get me. RJ, what gets you? Do baptisms get you, man?
No, not usually.
What gets you?
Altar calling.
Oh, the altar calls, yes. I can't. Altar calls get overwhelming especially if you're close, because it's just like you just see people, you know, some people giving their lives to God, which is like when you see it, it's like heaven is rejoicing. That
Yeah.
one thing that you're sitting there looking at. But then also people just going up there with need. They have these, they're broken, or they have these needs, or they're hopeless. And then you see them up there and they're crying. And that was a good call, RJ. Altar calls are, a lot of altar calls are amazing. Like to just see, some of the things we've seen, and a lot of amazing thing happens in them, because then people are totally like, if you were, especially people that don't usually go up front, if you're willing to go up front, you're like, what I mean? Like you're leaving every piece of, pride, and you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. Nobody wants to walk up in front of a bunch of people they don't know
No.
and admit that they have issues. I mean, the
At
people
all.
around me, that's the good thing about sticking with one church too, RJ, is if you keep going to the same church, they already know you have issues. It gets a lot easier to walk up front. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
That's my daughter. She goes to Christian school.
mhm.
And last night they had their like winter program with K through 5. And at the end of it, they like prayed. And then there was a little boy, and his teacher baptized him crying, just instantly crying. They just get me.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, so much stuff in the kingdom is beautiful. Like we operate in the world for so long, and then you step into this, it's weird. You step into this weird place where it's like, okay, I believe in God, or, and I believe in Jesus Christ. And then, I believe in Holy Spirit, and you start to see things, and then they become normal. And, you start to, like we were talking about some services the other day, and it's just like, man, some of the stuff we've seen doesn't make any sense. It's a beautiful thing walking with God. So that's cool. The good shepherd leaves the 99 for
It
the
was
one.
so good. I
Yeah.
had never heard it before.
It's powerful when
yeah, it was
you come
great.
from with the perspective of the one. I think it's Corey Asbury or something has that song, "Reckless Love," but
Yeah.
in some of the live versions, he'll stop and talk, and he was like, "That sounds crazy." I don't remember exactly what he says. Blaze has it memorized, my daughter. But it sounds crazy. Why would a shepherd leave 99 sheep because one's lost or hurt or whatever? It makes no sense until you're the sheep crying, until you're the one crying
Yeah.
out to be saved, and then it's it has a totally different meaning. Such a good song. It's "Reckless Love," and I think it's the live version. I know he does it, but he'll stop and talk about how the good shepherd leaves, or Jesus leaves the 99 for the one. So, yeah. And you'll hear it a lot. I mean, recovery people get it. You know what I'm saying? When they
Yeah,
hear it, they get it. Anybody that's been in that world is like, yep, that was me.
that was me. Yeah, that was my first thought.
Yeah, that's me.
Mhm.
Um, so you went to the church service, and that was good. What does your life look like now?
So I have my daughter. When I was doing all of my stuff, I guess that's important to say. I never lost her for say like to the state,
Hmm.
but my parents had her. I wasn't seeing her or anything like that. But now we're together every day. We're like this.
Yeah,
That's my little bestie. Um, so yeah, I have her. That's the biggest thing is just spending time with her. And then like I said earlier, I work at Allendale Treatment. Love that. It gave me a sense of other than being a mom, which for a long time wasn't my purpose because I wasn't doing it. You know what I mean? I was a mom, but I wasn't being a mother.
yeah,
And so now I've got that purpose of being Lydia's mom and then also feeling like all the pain that I went through while I was using that it has a purpose because now I get to help people going through the same thing.
yeah,
So I think that's also another big thing to note that's helped with my recovery is feeling that sense of purpose now, like knowing this is who I am, this is what I was called to do, and I'm doing it.
yeah. I strongly believe if you find your purpose, everything. If you start to walk in what God's called you to walk in and find your purpose, you won't let anything. That stuff that used to get you doesn't get you anymore because it's like
Yeah.
you know. Um, and that's been important for me. I'm on
Mhm.
a mission. You know what I mean? It's not that I've been perfect or anything, but I know where I'm going.
Right.
And anything that gets in the way of that, eventually, like I've got to stomp on it.
Mhm.
Even if it's painful. So that's cool. Have you ever done an intervention?
I just did one actually, I think last week.
What was that like?
It was it was eye-opening because it was a mom that reached out to us. And she was there. And it really made me see, like, since being sober this time, I've known, like, this is probably how my mom felt, or I'll, like, hear things or just be thinking about it on my own, like, wow, I really put my mom through a lot. But seeing this mom, the daughter who we were doing the intervention on, reminded me so much of myself. And seeing the way this mom felt, I'm like, wow, like, that was my mom. That was me, and that was my mom. And so it was, like, a huge eye opener for me, and, like, where, like, on my way home, I texted my mom, I was like, "I'm sorry, and I love you." You know what
Mm,
I mean? Like,
yeah,
it was crazy. Um, I think it's it could be easy to take it personal if, like, you do an intervention on someone and they're like, "No, I don't want help." But I think if we as addicts remember, like, the first times that people were coming to us or, like, at any point coming to us and were like, "Hey, like, you should probably get help," and the amount of times, like, me personally at least was like, "Nah," like,
yeah.
there's literally nothing wrong with my life, like, what do you mean? I'm fine, and
I'm living in an alley.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, there's no issues are going on here,
right.
and so I didn't take it personal, she didn't end up going and getting help, but I think even when you intervene like that, or you talk to someone, even just like a short conversation, you're planting a seed. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're at least gonna think about it in that moment or when they go to bed that night or in 5 years when they're like, okay, now I really am at rock bottom and ready to get help, they'll maybe remember your conversation.
What was it like to see the family? Did they seem deflated after?
So when we left, the girl was gonna go. We didn't find out until later that like on her way there, she decided not to go.
Yeah,
So when we left, they were happy. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, we're gonna get our daughter back type of mood.
That's got to be such an emotional roller
Oh
coaster.
yeah.
I mean, we deal with it to an extent, but just like having like one of your kids living that lifestyle
Mhm.
and just you can't sleep. That's the thing is like when you talk, because we have people reach out and you'll talk to them, and it's like they would literally do anything for the person that they love, anything. You know what I mean? You can hear it in their voice. They're like, I'll do
Mhm.
anything I have to do. And just they can't sleep because they're worried about getting a phone call or where they're at. And just, it's really like it's got to be a level of torment. Like you can't really have peace unless they're in
Mhm.
jail, treatment, or with you. you
That's what my
know?
mom used to tell me, and, like, at the moment, when she would say it, I would get really offended, but she wasn't saying it from a place of, like, being evil or, like, being rude, you know what I mean? But she would just say, like, that same she had no peace. Anytime that even, like, an unknown phone number would call her, her heart would drop because she's like, "This is someone calling me to tell me my daughter's dead." You know what I mean? She
Yeah.
never knew. And she was like, if I was dead, she would have like, they would grieve and she would move on, you know what I mean? She would have peace because there'd be no unknown, you know what I mean? They would just be able
Mhm.
to grieve and move on. And in the moment, I'm like, wow, is she basically telling me, like, go die? You know what I
Right.
mean? But, like, that's not what she meant. And now I get that. Like, when you're grieving someone and, like, in constant worry of someone that's living, you
Yeah.
just have no peace. It's hard. And
Yeah.
we say as addicts, like, while I was using, I can't count the number of times that I said, I'm only hurting myself. Like,
Yeah.
I'm the one that's getting high and living in a tent and doing all this crazy stuff just to live this way. Like, I'm only hurting me. And that's so far from the truth.
It has an impact on a lot of people.
Everyone.
Yeah. Have you overdosed?
Yeah.
How many times you think?
Mm, several. Like, probably close to 10 times.
Did your mom get called on some of them?
Yeah, so most of them happened, I think all but 2 happened when I was not in my mom's home. But I have a sister who's 15, and my daughter would have been like 3, 4 maybe at this time. So then my sister, I guess, would have been like 12. And I had overdosed in my mom's house, and it was only my little sister and my daughter home.
So they found you?
Yeah, so my daughter went back to my sister and was like, "My mom won't wake up." And my sister was like, "She's probably just tired, like, whatever." And I guess my daughter, like, went back there again. And so then my sister came in there and FaceTimed my mom and was like, "Hey, Emma doesn't look right." And, like, as soon as I guess she put the camera on me, my mom was like, "Call 911." And so my little sister called 911.
That's crazy. What
Yeah.
happened after that? So your mom had to find out basically on FaceTime,
Yeah.
and your daughter found you and went and got your sister. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
So they called 911. I went to the hospital, and it's crazy because this has happened a couple of other times, but I have like no memory of it. So I guess the girl, EMS worker, or maybe it was somebody at the hospital, was somebody that I went to high school with. And I guess I was like in the moment having conversation with them. But I went back to my parents that night, woke up the next morning, and like everyone's kind of acting weird. And I'm like, what is going on? And my little sister's like, dude, like you overdosed yesterday. You had to go to the hospital. Like, what do you mean what's going on?
You didn't remember
I
any
didn't
of
remember
it?
any of it.
What did your mom say to you that morning?
I don't remember.
Was she mad or just tired or what, you think?
Probably just disappointed. She got
Mm,
to a point where she really didn't get mad anymore. Not because she wasn't mad, but because I just had beat her down
mm,
so bad. You know what I mean? Like there was just she didn't get her hopes up anymore, so nothing let her down.
yeah. And she didn't like some people, their kids are in their 30s, 40s, so
Mhm.
that would just keep beating you up until there's not much, I mean, there's not
Yeah.
much left of you after all of those years.
And like I said, my little sister was just like barely a teenager and she was caring for my daughter. So she kind of had to keep herself together the best she could because she still had 2 kids essentially that she was raising.
Was your sister mad?
Yeah.
She went off on you?
Yeah. So there was another time when I ended up not being allowed in my parents' home, but before that had happened, I was blacked out on Xanax, had no memory. I had pawned my phone for dope money and then made my way back to my parents' house. And I guess I was asking my little sister to use her phone so I could text the dope man, and she was telling me no, and I broke her nose.
Mm,
And again, no memory of it. Wake up the next day, everyone's being so rude to me, and I'm like, well, "What's your guys' problem?" You know what I mean? Like, how dare you act like that to me? Like, what's the deal here? And my mom's like, I remember her just being like, "Go look at your sister," and like her nose is all messed up, and I'm like, no memory of it. And my little sister, like, that's my right hand man. You know what I mean? Like, she really looked up to me, and she's seen a lot that she shouldn't have because of me. But at that time, for her to be mad enough at me to not talk to me was like a huge deal because like that was my person and I was her person.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What was how did you guys restore? Are you still working on like restoring that relationship or?
So I think we just kind of once she saw I was staying sober this time, she just came around, but now the relationship's a little different because stuff that she would do when I was getting high, I was like, okay, like my little sister's cool, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like she's not gonna be a weirdo, like she's
right.
cool. And now that I'm sober, I'm like, dude, you can't talk like that. You can't dress like that. Like,
Yeah,
what do you mean you're vaping? You know what I mean?
right.
Like, I'm like, you can't, none of that's okay. So I think now we're sisters now, not friends. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So
Sisters are funny. My
it's
daughters,
hard.
like y'all, you guys will go after each other.
Mhm.
Like girls, my girls are sweet, but when
Mhm.
they go at each other, it's like
Cutthroat.
there is nothing's off limits. Like,
Mm-mm.
you know what I mean? They will
Yeah.
say just about anything.
Yeah.
And then 15 minutes later, they're back there laughing and doing their thing. And
Mhm.
it's like, you guys, like,
It's really like that.
yeah, constantly.
Mhm.
Just hearing back there laughing, and it's like, man, I was just about to have to separate them and lock
Yeah.
everybody in their rooms. So wild. So, what is some advice? I want to ask you a couple of questions. What is some advice you would give somebody that's struggling right now and can't seem to get all the way through treatment, or they do, and they get out
Mhm.
and they just keep cycling? Like, what's some advice you have, or some good advice you've gotten in your life, for those people?
So my first thing that I always think of is what Nate said to me about recovery is not for people who want it or need it. It's just for people who do it. You know what I mean? You don't have to be ready. You're never going to be ready if it's up to you. Like, just do it, you know?
Yeah,
And then the other thing is something a sponsor had told me. And she said, just try recovery for a year. You know what I mean? Or even if you don't want to go that big and say 6 months. She was like, in 6 months or a year, drugs are still going to be there. You know what I mean? They're not going anywhere. So if you really try, like meeting, sponsor, church, whatever it looks like for you, if you try it, genuinely put in the effort for 6 months to a year and you hate it after that, go back to getting high. She was like, because drugs will always be there, but recovery won't. You know what I
yeah,
mean? You only get so many chances before it's too late. And so I did that. And then yeah, really to me, anyone who like genuinely gives recovery a chance and like their life got worse, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Or like they hated it so much.
yeah. If it wasn't worth it, we all wouldn't be out here talking about it.
Right.
There's a lot of other stuff we could be doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of other things I could be doing, but
My life would not be even a fraction of what it is today if I was still getting high.
yeah. What would you tell family members that have somebody struggling that's not ready to get help?
So it's probably not what they want to hear, but what I would say to them is like boundaries. I mean, if my parents wouldn't have got to a point where they're like, you cannot come into our house anymore, you are not talking to your child, and I was like literally living in a tent, I would have kept using them, abusing them, stealing their things and selling them, manipulating them, like whatever bad thing I could be doing to get my way.
Yeah,
And so I think we hear a lot of like family members that are like, I just can't cut them off because then what if something happens to them? Or what if the last thing I said to them was something mean and then they die? Like, that's not on the family. Like, if they're going to die whether the last thing you said was, I love you or get out of my house. You know
hmm,
what I mean? So I think it's just really important.
isn't the hard truth they could die right there in your house?
Exactly.
If it's
And
gotten that bad.
right. And what my mom would say to me is like when she stopped giving me money, she'd be like, I'm not going to give you $20 and then you use that $20 to go get high. And I'm the one that gave you the $20 that kills you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So I
I tell
think,
people sometimes it's okay to meet people for coffee and lunch and stuff, but boundaries it's a thing nobody wants to really have the discussion
no.
about. You know what I mean? Because it's not an easy one.
Mm-mm.
Because I think about my own girls, and it's like it's easy for me to tell somebody like you got to have boundaries, but it's like I
Yeah.
would have such a hard time
Same.
Yeah, so, setting boundaries with them, but it would be at some point it's necessary,
Mhm.
you know.
Especially like when we're talking about another addict that's like the kind of addict I was, that's just like running a tornado through their loved ones' lives, like just destroying everything with didn't feel bad, didn't care. Like the family doesn't deserve that and they don't have to put up with that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
I think they feel like because it's their child or their whatever that they have to put up with it, and they don't. Like you don't have to let that person like abuse you or bully you into giving them money. Like none of that's like required,
yeah.
you know?
Oh, yeah. So, how important is God for your recovery and how far you've come?
I would say pretty important.
Yeah,
I pray every single day. I don't make it to church as much as I would like to, but prayer for me is really important. And I know today, like if I'm having a bad day or I'm like gonna meet with someone for the first time and I'm like super anxious, that's what's always there. You know what I mean?
hmm,
Like I can pray quicker than I can get to a meeting. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's always the thing that comes up first. Does
yeah,
that make sense?
yeah. You can pray before you can get to a meeting. RJ, that's a T-shirt. That's a T-shirt. You can pray quicker than you can get to a meeting. Meetings are important.
So is prayer.
Definitely important, but prayer is. I don't know what I would do if I couldn't talk to God.
Hmm.
I really
We
don't.
talked about this before. Sometimes I'm like, hey, like, do you hear me, God? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, hey, it's me again.
right,
But then I just keep praying, you know what I mean?
right.
Just blow up his line. It's
Well, he wants to hear from you. It's the good father thing. Back to like the shepherd. Like my
Mhm.
girls, they can't get a hold of me too much. Now, sometimes I get a little frustrated. I'm like, y'all called me back to the bedroom 3 times to bring you pops and stuff, but like I can't hear from them too much.
Yeah.
And especially if the more they're hurting or struggling, the
Mhm.
more available I am
Yeah.
just by nature. So
Mhm.
if I know one of them's hurting, I want to hear from them more. Or if they're stressed or they're going through something or life
Mhm.
is bad. And he's a better father than any of us, a better parent, better father than any of us will ever be,
Mhm.
So in that, it's a beautiful thing, because it talks about how much more does he love us
Mhm.
than we love our kids. And so think about that.
Yeah.
That's how much he loves us. And then I think about my kids. I'm like, I love
Like
those
that's
two
a
a
lot.
lot. Yeah, a lot. And he has a greater love than we can understand is
Mhm.
basically what it is. So you can't I feel like I'm harassing him sometimes.
Yes,
Just like,
same.
God, I just,
Like a no
you know,
contact order is like
right.
on the way.
Yeah. But that he wants to hear from us, and he wants to direct us and guide us. So you can pray quicker than you can get to a meeting. I like that. So is there anything else you
Shout
want to
out to
share?
Emma.
Shout out to Emma. So is there anything else you want to share with us?
Just as far as that whole topic goes, with my daughter going to Christian school, she comes home and it's kind of how I said that I got turned off from church growing up because some of the things that I heard. We're like now experiencing this together because she's in kindergarten, but she went to preschool there. So she's getting like learning new things at school. And sometimes she'll come home and like, I might have told you this about her she had like learned the 10 Commandments. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I know those. I knew like 4 of them. You
Right.
know what I mean? So it's been like something, our first, like, not hobby, but like interest and like thing we're doing where we can like learn and do it at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's been cool.
That's cool. And kids know how to do it right. Adults get to jacking stuff up.
Oh, her prayers are like the best thing in the world. They're like
Yeah.
so genuine. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, yeah, she's great.
Yeah. That's cool that you guys are kind of, like the reintroduction to all of it, like
Yeah.
you're doing that together. And kids they have a different kind of faith and they're also very simple. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? It's like, oh, there is no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not going to argue back and forth with you. They know what they
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
they know what they feel, they know what they
Right.
read, and they believe it.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't had a lot of kids haven't had anything attack their confidence and their faith. A lot
Yeah.
have, but if you get a kid when it comes to the faith stuff, you can't tell them nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They read it, they believe Jesus,
They're right.
yeah. That's what the Bible says. Have faith like a child,
Yeah.
like these. So you're with Allendale.
Yeah.
Are you affiliated with Bare Knuckle? Do you do any of the?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you have the hoodie on.
Yeah.
Do you ever do any of the responses on Facebook?
So yeah, I've reached out to a couple people. I don't do a whole lot of it. But yeah, I reached out to a girl today, actually. I don't think that she's responded, but it was like a pregnant, situation and I just have like a soft spot for that kind of stuff. So,
Were you using when you were pregnant?
so I stayed clean when I was pregnant with Lydia. After I had Lydia and like the time that I was getting high, I had like 3 miscarriages. Because I was just talking to Sam about this today. So I had our thinking is so warped, you know what I mean? Whenever
Yeah.
we're using. And I had this mindset of like, I can't even get clean to care for my like already living child. Like, why would I get clean for this now like unborn kid? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I ran with that like guilt as an excuse to just keep using.
That's what the stuff does to you.
Yeah.
Like it makes things
Zero
that are
logical thoughts.
very illogical seem very logical.
Yeah.
And it's all just to keep you close to whatever you're using.
Absolutely.
Like it's all designed to keep like whatever I can say. Oh, my kids are better off without me.
Yeah.
It's getting
I
me
said that
closer.
one a lot.
Yeah. Oh, you know what I mean? And I'm a better parent when I'm high. Like I've said, you say all of these things that make absolutely no sense. Like once you're sober minded, you're like, that's
the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
It's not accurate at all. So, and I think that RJ, that's what I love is like we get a chance to see people at different parts in their like faith walk. You know what I mean? And it's so cool to see like with you starting to experience it. Starting to experience it after church hurt, which we hear a lot. A lot of people have been hurt by the church growing up and stuff, but to watch people start to walk it out and recognize that, God's all over their story. And then just, to start to see him moving in their daily life and then start to depend on him for guidance. It's such a cool thing to watch. Like we're all in such different places, but I like love hearing where somebody else is at with it. And it's cool to see like you and your daughter, because of your choices, her life is going to be different. You know what I mean? She's, and she's going to remember all of the, the reading the Bible and the 10 Commandments and all of that stuff will, and then you'd have no idea what impact she's going to have on people one day.
She's going to be great.
Yeah.
She's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah. Amen. So Emma, thank you for coming in. Good to see everything you have going on now and that you're making an impact, and congratulations on all of the reconnecting with your daughter and sobriety and all that fun stuff.
Thank you.
And so it's been a good conversation. RJ, thank you as always. He's the man. Delivered Media. If your church is trying to set up sound equipment, audio equipment, anything like that, you want to do a podcast, hit them up, Delivered Media on Facebook, and RJ will probably be your contact. And we are just grateful for all the support we've got as we're starting to end out the year. It's been a wild ride. I don't know when we started this, but we're on about 26 episodes. This will be a 26th episode, so that's just wild to me that we have come this far with the help of a lot of people. I know a lot of people have helped. So if you haven't had a chance yet, and this episode hits you, or you think it might help somebody, you can share it straight off of the apps, the Apple Podcast app, the Spotify app, or YouTube, of course. And if you liked it, comment on it, give us some feedback, let us know what you thought. We thank you all so much for joining us, and please check us out every Monday. We drop early in the morning, so be looking for it. Turn the notifications on if you can. And we just thank you all. Thank you, Emma, for coming. And this has been Escaping the Chains podcast. We're out.